547 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asking you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. Fool's Gold. The term fool's gold literally means gold that's not really gold. It's something that may look like gold, something that may feel like something valuable, but it's really not. If you break it down, if you look at the layers of it, it's something that is not as valuable as it may seem to the world. Cam Newton, shout out to him, was on, I think, First Take, and he called this Patriots team fool's gold. Now, this obviously comes after the Patriots got the Thursday night football win over the Jets 27-14. Let me talk about that game for a second. Shout out to the Patriots for winning the game. It was essentially domination. It was a team that is good going up against a team that is bad. Travion Hendrickson, he didn't have to do much. However, he did have 3 touchdowns. Drake May had over 250 yards. The Patriots look like the team that they've looked like majority of this year. They looked great. The Jets looked bad. I think Garrett Wilson, he's out. He was put on IR. It's just not a good team. We've come to the realization, at least I have come to the realization, that Justin Fields is not really a good quarterback or hasn't shown the ability to be a good quarterback for a long period of time. The Jets are not a good team. And the Patriots, I know it was a divisional game, but they did what they were supposed to do. Hey, I will say at least Justin Fields did throw for over 100 yards this game, but the Patriots did what they were supposed to do. That is the only analysis that you needed from that Thursday night football game. But when somebody calls a team fool's gold, I just don't want to let that claim just go without discussion. Quiet as it's kept, especially if I believe it. You know, as much as I don't want to do this, as much as it pains me to say this New England Patriots team reminds me a hell of a lot of last year's Washington Commanders team, which we found out, obviously, in the NFC Championship, that they may have been fool's gold. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Jay, how in God's name can a team that went to the NFC Championship a game away from the Super Bowl, how was that team fool's gold? I'll explain it. And to be completely honest, that's one of the biggest reasons, if we're broadening this topic, that's one of the biggest reasons why I didn't think Washington was going to make the playoffs this year. Or if they were going to make the playoffs, it was going to be extremely difficult. Last year, let's just discuss Washington's schedule. They played Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost the first game. Then they played the Giants, didn't make the playoffs. Then they played the Cincinnati Bengals, didn't make the playoffs. Then they played the Arizona Cardinals, didn't make the playoffs. Then they played the Cleveland Browns, didn't make the playoffs. They played Baltimore, a team that did make the playoffs, they lost. Then they played the Carolina Panthers, didn't make the playoffs. The Chicago Bears didn't make the playoffs. They played the Giants again. They played the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that did make the playoffs, they lost. They played the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that ultimately won the Super Bowl, they lost. They played the Dallas Cowboys, they lost. They played the Tennessee Titans that did not make the playoffs, they won. They played the New Orleans Saints, didn't make the playoffs, they won. They played the Eagles. However, Jalen Hurts got hurt that game. They won. Then they played Atlanta. Didn't make the playoffs. They won. They played Dallas last game of the season. If I'm not mistaken, Dak Prescott didn't play. They won. But then you get to the playoffs. They go up against a Tampa Bay team that was riddled with injury. They won. They went against the Detroit Lions team that was riddled with injury. They won. Then the team that was fully healthy, fully loaded, that they played for the first time probably since November 14th. They played the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship and lost 55-23. Wasn't even close. So you're probably thinking to yourself, Jay, how in God's name does that have anything to do with this New England Patriots team? I'll explain. Do I think the Patriots is a good team? Yes. Do I think that Drake May is an MVP candidate? Yes. Do I think that Drake May has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year? Do I think that Mike Vrabel has been one of the best coaches this year? Do I think that the New England Patriots have one of the best defenses in football this year? Yes. All of that is true. But if you want to hearken back to what I was talking about with the Commanders, their schedule helped them a lot until it didn't. When the Commanders had to play teams that they could possibly see in the playoffs or upper echelon teams while they were fully healthy, they lost last year. The schedule was the Washington Commanders' biggest ally outside of Jayden Daniels being really good. And even in the playoffs, you play an injury-riddled Bucs team. We remember almost everyone on the Detroit Lions team was injured. And then as soon as they played a fully healthy team in the Eagles, they lost. While, yes, I'm not going to discredit what the Commanders did, what I'm saying is there were a lot of breaks that they had. There were a lot of breaks that helped them get to that NFC Championship. Fast forward to this year and talking about this Patriots team, look at their record. Now, obviously, you play who you play. They're 9-2 at this point, but look who they have played. They played the Raiders, definitely not making the playoffs. They played the Dolphins, definitely not making the playoffs. They played the Steelers when the Steelers were rolling. They lost. They played the Panthers, probably not making the playoffs. Their biggest win is the Bills, but kind of what we're seeing is the Bills may not be as good as we thought. Yes, Josh Allen is good, but the Bills may not be as good as we thought going into the season. They won that game. They played the Saints, arguably one of the worst teams in football. They won. They played the Tennessee Titans, arguably one of the worst teams in football. They won. They played the Browns, arguably one of the worst teams in football, at least offensively. They won. They played the Falcons, can't get that right, and they won by 1 point. They played an injury-riddled Bucs team, and they won. And they played the Jets. And moving forward, they got the Bengals that they should win, the Giants that they should win. We'll see about the Buffalo Bills, and then the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, depending on how they look going into week, 14, that might be their toughest game of the season. That might be the first time they play a team playing to the caliber in which we think they could play. Don't get me wrong. I know this sounds like I'm hating, but it's true. I think the schedule has been the biggest ally to this New England Patriots team. Now, with all fairness, they have beat the team that they're supposed to beat, so shout out to them. But you can't tell me if they had the same exact schedule. In fact, let me see. Let me go to. I'm not even going to do that. If they had a tougher schedule, I don't know if we'd be looking at them the same. Again, I'm not discrediting them beating who they beat on their schedule. But they lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Raiders, and they lost to we're putting so much stock in them beating the Buffalo Bills, and understandably so. They beat the reigning MVP in Josh Allen. However, we're also not taking into consideration that the Bills, especially defensively, may not be as good as we thought. Again, Drake May has been incredible. Mike Vrabel has been incredible. May win Coach of the Year. But let's. I don't think that this team is. I think this team is as good as obviously the schedule that they have, and they have a pretty. Again, if we're even looking, want to harken back to last year, the Raiders didn't make the playoffs last year. They lost though. The Dolphins didn't make the playoffs last year. The Panthers didn't make the playoffs last year. The Saints didn't make the playoffs last year. The Titans didn't make the playoffs last year. The Browns did not make the playoffs last year. The Falcons didn't make the playoffs. All of those teams are teams that not only the Patriots are playing this year, but 9 times out of 10, all those teams are not making the playoffs this year. I think obviously we need to see what they look like once they get to week 12, week 13 and 14. But I think week 13 and 14, more specifically week 14 is really going to show. Now obviously if the Ravens, cuz right now they're rounding into form. Or they've rounded into form it looks like, and they're they got their pieces back. Everyone's healthy, and they're looking like the way that we thought the Ravens would look like going into this year. And obviously, we'll see what happens with the Buffalo Bills, because even when they did play the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo was missing a lot of their defensive players. We'll see if they play, but we're really going to see the true Patriots, I'm going to say, in week 14 if the Ravens continue to look like the way that they look, and the Patriots continue to look like the way they look. Because I understand exactly what Cam Newton's saying about the fool's gold. Because what could happen is this team makes it to the playoffs as a 1 or 2 seed, and then you're going to have to go up against a wild card team in I don't know. But congratulations to the New England Patriots for beating the Jets on Thursday Night Football. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from what we've seen this season. Again, I think Drake May has been great. I think that he is an MVP candidate. There's a lot of people that have him number 1 at the MVP spot. However, let's not discredit the fact that they've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. 7 teams that did not make the playoffs last year and that probably won't make the playoffs this year. I understand they got Stephon Diggs, who honestly hasn't really been good up until the last maybe 3 to 4 weeks. Stephon Diggs has been I think on the season he has like 4 touchdowns, maybe 5. Shout out to him having the kid with Cardi B, but he has not been the Stephon Diggs you would think he would be, how much they paid him. So, and on top of that, they don't really have you can say, well, hey, they don't throw him the ball. I mean, if you look at those games, he doesn't really get open. So, again, I'm not crapping on this team. I'm just saying let's wait and see what they look like. Because you're hearing a lot of people say, oh, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. I'm like, it's funny. Obviously, there's a bias in me when it comes to the Commanders. And last year when I heard a lot of people, and obviously I was happy with my team making it to the NFC Championship last year. But deep down, I knew this is fool's gold. And as much as I'm going to ride with my team, as much as I had the Jaden Daniels jersey with the Commanders had watching the game in real time, watching the Eagles put up 55, I kind of knew we weren't going to beat the Eagles. It was just the fan in me that wouldn't allow me to accept it because I knew we were fool's gold. I think I don't know. This Patriots team could make it to the AFC Championship, but we'll see. We'll see. Speaking of we'll see, let me give my predictions on week, what is this, 11? Give me a second. I did not have this prepared. Boom. Yeah, week 11. Give my predictions. You have Washington at Miami. This is in Spain. I know last episode I talked about Deron Payne. I talked about how, there has to be a level of professionalism. I also talked about Kinlaw. Both of them had altercations with Deron Payne was caught on tape punching Amara St. Brown. I think Kinlaw was caught pushing a ref, but turns out more evidence has come out saying that, or showing that Amara was actually the person that did it first. I don't apologize with saying, you know what? I do apologize because I didn't go in with the overall complete story and complete understanding. I do think that there had to be a more professionalism being shown by all parties. However, I do apologize for making it sound like and making it seem like that Deron Payne was just the aggressor and Kinlaw was just the aggressor, and it wasn't retaliatory. If I said it wrong, hey, it is what it is. So I do apologize with that. Bringing back to this week, I actually think there's a chance that Washington wins this game. I know that Jaden Daniels is not playing, and this team looks extremely different with Marcus Mariota as the starting quarterback. However, the Dolphins aren't that good, even though I know they did just get a win against the Bills. I'm going to go Washington. I think that Washington's defense is at least good enough, even though it's not good. It's good enough. Oh, wait, they are dealing with a bunch of injuries still. I'm going to go Washington. I don't really trust Miami to, they've been a roller coaster ride this year, and most of it's been pretty low. So I'm going to go with Washington. Then you have Carolina at Atlanta. Honestly, it should be Carolina for what we've seen these last maybe 4 or 5 weeks. However, they did just lose to the Saints last week. And Atlanta, they did lose as well. And I think Atlanta should be better. And you're playing at home. Now, Rico Dowdle can go crazy because this Atlanta run defense was putrid. But I'm going to go with Atlanta. I think Atlanta's just a better team, and I'm done trusting the Carolina Panthers. They're just going to have to earn my trust back if they can. So I'm going to go with Atlanta. Let me see. Tampa Bay at Buffalo. Buffalo, I didn't realize Buffalo has one of the worst rushing defenses in football. Now, it does help that, Bucky Irving's not going to play for Tampa Bay. I don't think Chris Godwin's going to play. I still don't think Mike Evans is going to play. So you're down to Emeka Egbuka and yeah. And I also don't think that – I think it came out that Dalton Kincaid's not going to play either, which has kind of been Josh Allen's number one target. And I'm a little disappointed by how Keon Coleman has come along, or his lack of growth, which I thought he was going to get. With that being said, however, I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think that it's getting extremely tough for Baker Mayfield to navigate. Don't get me wrong, Emeka Egbuka is incredible, but I just think it's getting harder and harder for him to navigate playing week to week without his top receivers. You can ride that momentum for a minute, but at some point, and yes, I know that the Buffalo defense is not that good, but at some point, it's going to be tough to. You're going to have to win a shootout, and this could be a shootout. So I'm going to go with Buffalo. Houston at Tennessee. I know it came out that C.J. Stroud's not playing this game. But what I saw from Darius Miles last week, the long neck bandit, I am going to go with the Houston Texans. There's nothing about Tennessee that I believe in. There's nothing about Tennessee that's good outside of Cam Ward, and even he's still a rookie, so nah. I'm gonna go with Houston. Chicago at Minnesota. Honestly, I'm gonna go with Chicago. I'm liking how their offense is developing. Caleb Williams, he's starting to come to form. This offense starting to look good with Colston Loveland as a primary target for Caleb Williams. Even though I would like to see Roma Dunze more in the offense, it's looked really good, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Minnesota's offense. It's not great, to be completely honest with you. JJ McCarthy, it still feels like the game is too fast for him, and because of that, I'm gonna go with Chicago. Green Bay at New York. New York just fired Mike Brian Daboll, and they're starting Jameis Winston. Don't get me wrong. I love watching Jameis Winston, not because he's just the greatest quarterback of all time, but because he's an entertaining person. And Green Bay, as much as I crapped on their offense after what we saw on Monday Night Football, their defense is still stout. And I think that Jordan Love, I'm sure he's probably going to make mistakes in the game, but I don't think his mistakes are going to cost him as much as maybe Jameis is going to cost the Giants. So I'm going to go with Green Bay. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. This is actually an extremely important game for both teams. I think that this is the game that Pittsburgh needs to get back on track. I mean, they haven't looked good even though they did look incredible against the Colts, they did not look good against the Chargers. And you're about to go into a tough stretch. Obviously, you're about to go into your divisional stretch, and the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel like they have to justify bringing back Joe Burrow. I don't think Joe Burrow should play again this year, especially with this offensive line being how bad it is, with the defense being how bad it is. I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers looked horrible last week. However, the Chargers defense is much better than the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So I don't think he's going to get as much pressure in his face, pause, than he did last week against the Chargers. So because of that, I think the offense is going to look a tad bit better than it did last week. So I have Pittsburgh winning this game. Chargers at Jacksonville. Again, Jacksonville and the Chargers are kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde to me, but I'm going to go with the Chargers. Jacksonville lost to a C.J. Stroud-less Texans team while being up at least 15 points in the fourth quarter. They lost that game. Like, no, we're not. The game of the week, in my opinion, is Seattle at Rams. I think the winner of this game is going to not only win the NFC West, but I think the winner of this game is going to find their way to the NFC Championship. That's how good the Seattle Seahawks have been. That's how good the Rams have been. The Seahawks, in my opinion, has kind of been a juggernaut. Their defense has been extraordinary. And while the Rams' defense has been really good too, their offense with Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua when healthy, Kyron Williams, they've been a juggernaut. I am going to give it to the Rams because the Rams are at home. I think the Rams' offense is, but then again, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Rashid Shaheed, well, more so, Jackson Smith and Jigba has been incredible for Seattle. I'm gonna go with the Rams. I think the Rams offensively is a tad bit better than the Seahawks offensively, and I think the Seahawks have been great though, but I'm gonna go with the Rams. 49ers at Arizona. Now it turns out Brock Purdy will be playing this game. I mean, if he is fully healthy, then I guess, but my thing is, if he's going to be your franchise quarterback, why would you bring him back if you're not really playing for anything? Especially with this defense being as injured as it is. I'm going to go with the 49ers, however, because I don't think the Arizona Cardinals, with obviously Jacoby Brissett starting, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Christian McCaffrey. But then again, I don't know if San Francisco's defense can really stop if they get it going. I'm going to go with, excuse me, I'm going to go with the 49ers. Baltimore at Cleveland. This game, I'm going to make a prediction. If the Baltimore Ravens play, okay, hot take. Dylan Gabriel has not been the biggest issue for this Cleveland Browns team. I repeat, as much as I would love to see Jaire Sanders play, Dylan Gabriel has not been bad because of Dylan Gabriel. He's been bad because this team is it doesn't really have talent at the skills position outside of Jerry Jeudy, who struggles a lot of time to create separation. This team isn't that good with skill positions, and you don't have a quarterback, or at least Dylan Gabriel hasn't shown the ability to rise above the lack of talent around him. He's still a rookie. You're about to play a team that is rounding into form. You're about to play a team that, again, the margin of error is damn near non-existent for Baltimore at this point. I'm going to pick Baltimore, but I feel like this is the game that is going to expose the fact of, there's levels. And you could very well, if Baltimore plays to their ability, I know Cleveland has an incredible defense, and it's an AFC North game, so it may not be that high scoring, because their defenses are really good. But we could see if Baltimore plays to their ability and they start putting points on the board, do not be surprised if we see Dylan Gabriel get benched and Jaire Sanders play. That's all I'm going to say on that. You have Kansas City at Denver. This is a big game for Denver. It's well documented how I felt about Denver this entire year and how I feel like they're also fool's gold when you look at their schedule because their offense has been putrid. I think Kansas City is going to win this game, and I think it's Denver's defense is incredible, but you're going to have to put points on the board, and I don't know, especially fully healthy, I don't know how many times Denver's defense is going to have to stop Patrick Mahomes in this offense, especially seeing as though I don't believe Denver's offense is going to put up a lot of points. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. Obviously, on paper, you would say that this is going to be the game of the week. Monday or Sunday Night Football, Detroit at Philly. I'm kind of tired talking about the quote unquote drama that is between AJ Brown and the team. It's pretty clear as day at this point. But I'm going to go with Detroit. I think there's been there's been four clear-cut best teams in the NFC this year. It's been Seattle, it's been the it's been the Rams, the Detroit Lions, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And it just so happens that all four are playing each other this week. I'm going to go with Detroit winning this game. I just think that even though defensively they aren't the healthiest, I think that they have their secondary is kind of iffy, especially if Jalen Hurts decides to start throwing the ball. Their run defense ain't the greatest either. I'm going to go with Detroit. And how in God's name did we get Dallas at Raiders for Monday Night Football? Yuck. Jesus Christ. We couldn't flex Seattle at Rams? Jeez. I got Dallas. I know Dallas defense is terrible, but the Raiders suck, so I'm going to go with Dallas. That's my Week 11 predictions, and we will see what happens. I want to remind people as we move forward what these lists are for, what the goal of these lists are. The goal of these lists is to create controversy. The goal of these lists are to create conversation and to draw people to whatever site, whatever organization put out these lists. So the grand scheme and the grand reason for this list is going to be accomplished here because Bleacher Report put out a list of the most overrated quarterbacks in all of football, and to my surprise, Lamar Jackson was number one. And they essentially broke it down in saying Lamar Jackson is overrated because he's, I think, the only two-time MVP that not only hasn't won a Super Bowl, but hasn't even got to a Super Bowl. And they're essentially calling his MVPs fraudulent, even though he had record-breaking seasons, those MVPs. And he's even had record-breaking seasons the years he didn't win MVP. But I'm going to talk solely to Bleacher Report and Lamar Jackson. Bleacher Report, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think, on the contrary, Lamar Jackson is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league right now. Obviously, he didn't play too well last week, but he's coming back from injury. Lamar Jackson, I don't think that when he's playing to the best of his ability, I don't think that there is a quarterback better than him. I know Josh Allen was great last year. Patrick Mahomes, he's been great, and I believe he's kind of come down, even though he's still great. But I think when Lamar Jackson's playing at his best, he's unmatched. I think with his rushing ability, with the passing ability, with the accuracy, he is unmatched. I do recognize, because obviously Bleacher Report, to strengthen their argument, they bring up the playoffs. And I think, here's my thing. I hate when they do this. I hate when they, don't get me wrong. I know Lamar Jackson is, 3-5 in the playoffs. I understand he hasn't been to a Super Bowl, but I hate when they constantly put the losses on Lamar Jackson and just completely negate the fact that one of them losses, Zay Flowers fumbled at the goal line against the Chiefs. If he would have scored that touchdown, Baltimore would have won and been in the Super Bowl. That's also the game where Baltimore, for some reason, was the number one rushing team in the league by a wide margin and decided to stop rushing the ball, to stop running the ball. This was also the year where Baltimore had the best defense by far and was getting torched the first half by the Chiefs. That was in the AFC Championship. They also negate the fact of, if we just want to go back to last year, Lamar Jackson, I know he had he had two plays that were bad the first half. He had the interception, he had the fumble. But Lamar Jackson played masterful the second half and got his team back into position. He didn't talk about the fact of Derrick Henry dropped a key pass that stopped momentum, and then Mark Andrews with the fumble and the dropped 2-point conversion. It's like we want to preach that the NFL is such a team sport. When they talk about Joe Burrow not winning the Super Bowl, they always talk about his offensive line. When they talk about Joe Burrow not going to the playoffs last year, they talk about his defense, rightfully so, but they just so happen to talk about his defense. When they talk about Patrick Mahomes not winning the Super Bowl, they talk about, his defense, the Eagles just torched his defense. Or when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he didn't have an offensive line. It's like, when I get it, Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes obviously has been and won a Super Bowl, but it's like when they talk about those quarterbacks, they never fail to actually talk about why they possibly lost the game. Yet and still, when they talk about Lamar Jackson and call him the most overrated quarterback, they fail to mention that he has put his team in position to win multiple times in the playoffs, and somebody else has dropped the ball. Don't get me wrong. There have been multiple games where Lamar Jackson has not played well in the playoffs, and I am the first person to admit that. But I'm not going to sit here and say his 3-5 record is because he's been terrible all 5 games. I'm not going to say that. And I'm also not going to sit here and say when we have a league of half the quarterbacks don't make the playoffs, I'm not even going to remotely say that Lamar Jackson is the number 1 overrated quarterback just because he hasn't been to a Super Bowl. Like, Lamar Jackson is 28 years old. I think that there is a long runway of him being able to make the Super Bowl. His career is not over. His career will not be over tomorrow. His career will not be over next year, Lord willing. So I think he has ample time to make a Super Bowl. So let's hold off, you know? Not to mention, let's say he doesn't win it this year. I'm sure they're going to blame Lamar because when you look at the roster, even though we have talked about I know they've rounded into form, but we have talked about how poor their defense has been. But I'm sure you're gonna put it on Lamar, like Bleacher Report did. Let's be honest about what we're seeing, Bleach. Come on, man. But then I go to Lamar Jackson. And this is the realm that you've played yourself in, Lamar. In some ways you should be proud. In some ways, you should understand that this is the Lamar Jackson, to me, is so good that he has brought on an unrealistic expectation that he has to make a Super Bowl just to prove that his greatness is what it is. Like, as much as people talk about Josh Allen, right? Who is, again, the reigning MVP. No one talks about Josh Allen has to make a Super Bowl. What they say is he just has to be Patrick Mahomes. Because quiet as it's kept, people, if they want to be honest with themselves, they don't have Lamar Jackson in the same class as Josh Allen. They have him higher. They have Lamar Jackson in that Patrick Mahomes class. But they don't want to admit that. But they are admitting it by saying, oh, well, he hasn't made a Super Bowl. Why is it that there's only 2 quarterbacks in the league that we say that about? Patrick Mahomes, or they have to win a Super Bowl or make it to a Super Bowl or it's a bust. We don't say that about Jared Goff. We don't say that about Justin Herbert. We don't say that about what's his name? Jalen Hurts. We don't really say that about Josh Allen, who is the reigning MVP. We don't say that about Joe Burrow. We don't say that about Matthew Stafford. We don't say that about Sam Darnold. Why is it that the only 2 quarterbacks I feel like we say every single year it's Super Bowl or bust is, mind you, a lot of these quarterbacks have better teams, but we only say that about Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Why is that? Because if we're being completely honest with themselves, those are the 2 top-tier quarterbacks that constantly people want to, excuse my language, shit on. But that is, again, talking to Lamar Jackson, that's the realm that you played yourself in, bro. So, in all actuality, that is a sign of respect. That's a sign of, that's how good Lamar Jackson is. You have Bleacher Report saying that you're the most overrated quarterback as a 2-time MVP just because you haven't made the big game. Mind you, the guy that won the MVP last year was not on that overrated list. I just want to, who has not made it to a Super Bowl? So, But we'll see. And yeah, I don't agree. Good job, Bleacher Report, for successfully talking or getting me to talk about you guys. Um, I wanted to talk about Jaire Alexander. Um, with the news, obviously, that we got from Marshawn Nealand, uh, and then the news that we got from Jaire Alexander saying that he's stepping away from football. I think he's like 28 years old, stepping away from football to focus on his mental health and his physical health. I wanted to talk about that for a second because to me that news hit me like a ton of bricks. Um, Obviously the Marshawn Nealand hit the sports world like a ton of bricks, but this coming date just a couple days after hit me as well. I'm never gonna know what it's like to be a professional athlete. I'm never gonna know what it's like to be a professional athlete and essentially whatever you do is put on social media for the world to see, for the world to criticize. I'm never going to know what it's like to literally have be so recognizable that you have no privacy and really no ability to live a normal life, to just go to the store, go to the grocery store, go to the movies. I don't think I'm ever gonna know what that life is like. I'm also never gonna know what that life is like to have all that and to be at one point of your career undoubtedly one of the best players at your position. Let's not get it twisted. There was a good time in the league where Jaire Alexander was one of the best defenders in football. The way that he dominated his position as a Green Bay Packer was sensational, phenomenal, unmatched in a lot of areas. I'm never going to understand how it is to be at the top of your class and then injuries start to pile up. And you wanting as there's you're yearning to get back to the place that you were, but your body just physically won't allow you to do that. And then you go to Baltimore, where you're looked at to be a key acquisition, and you barely make an impact. Again, we're talking about somebody that used to be the player, used to be the top of his position in the NFL, can't even is healthy scratch a lot of games for the Ravens. And then you go to the Eagles and you're dealing with the same thing. And on top of all this, you have people at home that's not going to understand. Like you have wife and kids, and your kids are wondering why you're not dressed up for the game, or why when they look on TV, they don't see you. I will never understand what it means to be a professional athlete. And with that statement, that also means that I will never understand the pressure that comes with being a professional athlete. And I remember vividly, I don't remember where it was, but I know that somebody asked Jaire Alexander in the past why he played football, and he made it very clear. I played to get my family out the situation that they were in. And truth to be told, that's about 90% of the league. Obviously, I don't know Jaire Alexander, so I can't check on him or whatever. But this is the moment. These are the moments when you hear check on your strong friend or check on your friend. These are the moments that they needed. And this whole Marshawn Nealand and Jaire Alexander had me question my what's the word? My intentions as a friend. Because I was listening to Dan Orlowski talk about this, and he essentially said if a teammate or a friend came to him and asked, "Are you okay?" he's going to say yes every time. And I'm usually like that. Or I'll be all right, or I can't complain. I say that all the time. I can't complain because if you know the situation that I've come from, it's much better than whatever I'm going through now. But I'm also the friend that if I went to you and asked the same thing and you told me, "Are you okay?" it just stops. And you say yes, it just stops there. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know, man. I hope that Jaire Alexander is okay. I hope mentally he's able to. I mean, physically, I don't think he's ever going to get back to the Jaire Alexander that was one of the best defensive players in football. But I hope mentally he can come to terms with that and be okay with that. That it's not because he just fell off. It's because his body literally is his worst enemy in this situation. But yeah, this is yet another reminder to check on your friends. Check on your loved ones. Check on the people that you maybe haven't checked on in months or years. Because you never know what they're going through. Because again, I couldn't imagine going through what these professional athletes are going through and not being able to really have the privacy that normal people usually have. Because I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they traded in that privacy for money." No, they didn't. They were just supremely talented at their day job. That their day job pays them an exorbitant amount of money. That doesn't mean they sacrifice being a human being. So I pray for strength for Jaire Alexander and his family, and I hope he's cool, man. Because again, I'm speaking from a perspective that I know nothing about, but I do know that you usually don't see a 28-year-old step away from football for mental reasons. So I hope he's all right. Let's move forward. I want to congratulate I want to congratulate the MLB Award winners. Like Shohei Ohtani won the MVP for the NL. There's there was absolutely no question who the NL or National League MVP was going to be. I've said this before, and people, maybe because I don't watch baseball as much as other people, but they try to discredit what I'm saying. Shohei Ohtani is all around the best baseball player I've ever seen. The fact of he can pitch with the best of them. He's one of the best hitters, and this is what in a short time. This is his second consecutive, might I add, MVP, and he has 2 straight World Series. And if I'm not mistaken, last year, not this year, but last year, he won World Series MVP. Or maybe Freddie Freeman won that. I'm not sure. But, there's There should be absolutely no. I don't get me wrong. I know Kyle Schwarber, he finished second, and Juan Soto finished third. Both have pretty good seasons, but there's a reason why Shohei Ohtani had 30 first place votes out of 30. He is the best player I think we've ever seen, and especially all around. Like, obviously there have been better hitters, there have been better pitchers, but all around, I don't think we've seen a player better than Shohei Ohtani, to be completely honest with you. And congratulations for going back to back and winning the NL MVP. And then you get to the AL MVP. Look, I feel like this was definitely one of the toughest awards that you could have picked, because obviously you had two people making history. You had Aaron Judge having the season that he had, one of the best. He has statistically one of the best seasons he's had and that we've seen in baseball history. And then on the other side, we had Cal Raleigh that had the same thing. Third highest rated defensive pitcher in baseball. He also had 60 home runs, the dumper. Like, I probably would have went with Cal, but I understand that, Aaron Judge had the season that he had. Like, you kind of put yourself, both of them put themselves in an impossible situation. One of them was going to be upset. If they would have gave it to Cal, you would have, you understood, seeing as what he did as a catcher, to have 60 home runs is unheard of. But then again, statistically, Aaron Judge had statistics pretty much beat out storyline, because Aaron Judge had statistically one of the best seasons he's ever had and that we've ever seen from a player. So congratulations to both MVPs, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Shout out to the Cy Young winners, Tarek Skubal. He from the Detroit Tigers. He won back-to-back in the AL. And then Paul Skeens. Even though Pittsburgh was absolutely garbage this year, the Pittsburgh Pirates was god-awful. However, Paul Skeens showed what he's still amongst and the best NL pitcher in base. It's no question. That's why you heard a lot of people. The conversation throughout the season was, will and should they trade Paul Skeens? Because as great as he is, Pittsburgh was god awful. There was absolutely no chance of success moving forward. And then again, Scoopel, they're also saying, are they going to trade him as well? Because we're on Detroit, Tigers, and this is his he won back-to-back AL MVPs. Or AL Cy Youngs, I'm sorry. And, yeah, man, they didn't even make it to the World Series. So, yeah, congratulations to all the award winners in baseball. Definitely deserved. And lastly, before we go, as unfortunate as it is, and I think I tweeted this out, as unfortunate as it is, Bradley Beal will never be remembered in the NBA by his talent. Bradley Beal, quite as a kept, there was a couple seasons where he was the best or one of the best offensive talents in the league. He will never, when it's all said and done, when his career comes to an end, Bradley Beal will not be known for his talents. Bradley Beal will forever go down as one of the worst contracts in NBA history, because the Washington Wizards gave him, out of all people, a no trade clause, which just not only wrecked the immediate and near and future of the Washington Wizards, but then you see what happened when he went to Phoenix, and now this is all coming off the news of Bradley Beal will be out for the season with a hip fracture. Ever since, was it 2020, where he averaged 31 points a game, it's been a steep decline. And not just decline in games, but he played then 40 games and 50, 53, 53, and then 6. But in those games, he went from 31 to 23 to 23 to 18 to 17 to 8. And this is all being one of the highest paid contracts in NBA with a no trade clause. I knew that the biggest, let's say, concern and one of the biggest hurdles that the Clippers could have faced this year was Father Time. I didn't think that it would hit 6 games in. Bradley Beal's out for the season. Kawhi Leonard's missed like the last 4 or 5 games. Chris Paul is unplayable at this point. Chris Paul has been one of the worst, not just guards, one of the worst players in basketball this year. And Brook Lopez has been god-awful as well. I mean, I know he's not really a brute center. He's more of a shooting threes, but the Clippers a couple days ago played the Denver Nuggets. And not only did a lot of the 55, I believe, points that Nikola Jokic scored go on Zubac and Brook Lopez, but it was one of the most effortless 55 points I've ever seen. The only person that's been kind of consistent this year is James Harden. But even in that, he had a triple-double the other day, and they still lost that game. It is baffling how quickly Father Time has hit this Clippers team. And again, when I say it, people laugh or people look at me with a weird face. Bradley Beal is one of the most offensively gifted players we've ever seen in the league, especially when you look at between 2016 to 2020. 2 of those years, he averaged over 30. One of those years, if I'm not mistaken, he led the league in scoring. And again, from 2016 to 2022, he averaged more than 22 points. Yet and still, Bradley Beal will always be remembered for the contract and how since getting that contract, it's been a steep decline. And I will say, I'm not just blaming the players. I'm not blaming the players at all for what's going on with the Clippers. Shout out to Kendrick Perkins. He kind of said it. Lawrence Frank, bro, you built a team that is old, and you're wondering why their age is hitting them right now. Like, what are we doing? I don't know, man. And it's crazy, bro, because this is the same team that pushed, that pushed the Denver Nuggets last year to a Game 7, if I'm not mistaken? And this team has been god-awful, man. They've looked slow, obviously, because they're old and injured. Like, Kawhi Leonard, he's been injured again. Bradley Beal, like, it's... Yeah, I agree with Kendrick Perkins. I may not agree with Kendrick on a lot of things, but I agree with Kendrick Perkins on this. How do you hear about this Bradley Beal? Again, Bradley Beal, they made room for Bradley Beal. They traded Norman Powell, who was one of their top scorers and is flourishing right now in Miami. They traded Norman Powell. It wasn't a direct trade to get Bradley Beal, but they traded Norman Powell to create room for Bradley Beal. And Bradley Beal was out 6 games, out for the season. And on top of that, Bradley Beal also had injury history going forward or before then. So what? Yeah, man. We, as much as, like, if you look at sports as a whole, we talk about Brian Daboll. And while I do think that, his time was up, how do you not fire the GM he's the one that's signed off on a lot of these decisions? They're always going to kill the players in basketball. Why? Lawrence Frank is the one that built this team. And obviously, they're going to fire Ty Lue before they fire Lawrence Frank, which makes absolutely no sense. Because Ty Lue has proven that if you give him a complimentary roster, he can win a championship. But again, your best player in Kawhi Leonard yet again is out, and the person that you thought was going to be your third best player that you made room for is out for the season after 6 games. And even in those 6 games, he was averaging 8 points. By far, Bradley Beal's worst season. Yeah. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content and you're not subscribed, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Please subscribe. And if you are subscribed, please share. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It means a lot. Also, for my DSPs, it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs, wherever you like hearing this luscious voice of mine. Please follow, please rate, please share, please comment. I'm trying to grow the podcast unilaterally, and I cannot do without you guys' help. So please follow, share. It means a lot. Also, for my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, please follow. That's where you get stories. Shout out to Brittany. She's the one that does the stories. That's where you get, that's where you go back and forth with the comments. I'll respond to comments. Just keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth with the comments. It just means that not only you're listening to me, but you have an opinion, both of which I think is important and both of which I would like to hear. Again, keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth and debating in the comments. But if you are going to leave a comment and you are going to go back and forth with me, make sure you follow. Like, because what are we doing? Until next time, much love.